Everything, everything gonna be all right this morning.
All right, so joining me is obviously Tim Sylvia, former heavyweight champion, two-time heavyweight champion of the UFC, and then Steve Rusk, longtime training partner of ours. He was 4-0 in MMA. I think all your fights basically combined lasted about 2 minutes, and I think you were kind of bored with it and just said, I'll just help out the guys. But I have to tell this story, and Tim, you probably won't like me telling this story.
But beating me up
Steve,
all the time?
Yeah, Steve did the same thing to me. So when Tim was the heavyweight world champion, Steve would say to him things like, I'm going to belly to back you all night tonight in practice. And Tim, you'd say,
no, you're not.
No, you said, please don't.
Well, well, I said no, you're not, but it still happened.
Right, but, the times where Steve would grab you, throw you down on the ground before practice, and fish hook you until blood was coming out of your mouth and gouge your eyes with his thumbs. And he was picking on you like he was your uncle.
Yeah, it was horrible. I think the three of the most amazing things in my career, my fighting career was winning the title 2 times, and then the one time that I dropped Steve with a liver shot, and you were there, and I'm trying to get him off me so I can run around the ring with my hand around the cage with my hands up. I'm like, I just got him finally forever after 7 years.
Yeah, no, and Steve served a huge purpose in our team, beating everybody up all the time, and just so you understand, he's very high level wrestler, very good fighter, and now a Rock Island County Sheriff's deputy. So I'm sure the training has come in handy, the wrestling career and then the MMA and training with everybody.
Yeah, it's been very helpful, and it's nice to be able to spread the knowledge with the other deputies I work with and be able to pass on that knowledge and help them defend themselves.
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was UFC Hall of Famer, trainer of champions, eater of worlds, Patrick Milicic, dropping the science on our guest today. Man, I'm so very thankful for him taking the time and coming and hanging out. He is the man. He is the myth. He is the legend. He is Steve Rusk. What's up?
Not much. How's it going?
I'm good, man. I'm good, man. Every day above ground's a good day. We woke up today, so we are absolutely winning. Man, it's so cool that you come in, took the time to come in. I'm really thankful for you taking the time. Producer Juice, who's producing the episode today, we just got to talking the other day, and your name came up, and I'm like, how the hell have I not talked to this cat yet? I mean, you were mythologized, if you will. When Pat Milicic was on Joe Rogan talking about the unstoppable Steve Rusk.
Because we had some powerful wrestlers. Of course, you had Coleman and so many other guys, and they were basically all about ground and pound.
Yeah.
I mean, the only time Coleman got a submission in the UFC was when he fucking headlocked Dan Severn.
Or can opened somebody or whatever.
He never
take the leg in the head, the leg in the head, go, or no, a headlock and then squeeze them like that.
Yeah, it was like a judo scarf hold.
A compressor, yeah.
I mean, look, nobody wants to get stuck in that with that fucking gorilla back then.
He was ungodly strong when I trained him for the Pride Grand Prix, right?
Yeah.
He called me up and he goes, I want to come there and train with you. And he had lost 2 or 3 fights in a row at that point, so he was kind of cannon fodder put into that Pride Grand Prix. He was just a name at that point. And I go, all right, come here. You got to do everything I tell you to do. We're gonna train hard. I'm gonna torture you. And he's like, that's fine. And he wanted to come there, I think, because I had so many scary dudes at the time. Like Steve Rusk, who wasn't even a fighter, could kill every fighter I've ever trained. I mean, he'd just walk in the room, take off his fatigues from hunting, beat the shit out of everybody in the room, and then go back out hunting or fishing. That was Steve Rusk.
And he didn't fight?
He fought 4 times and just goes, you know what? I'm not into it, but I'll come into the gym and help everybody get ready. He helped me coach my IFL team. But he was the guy that, after I fought Lindland, when I got kicked out of my weight division, when the UFC goes, you got to move up weight division, I went.
Why'd they tell you have to move up?
They go, you've trained yourself out of a spot. You have Jason Black, Rob Lawler, and Matt Hughes all at 170. They're all ranked, I think, at the time, top 10 in the world. And they go, and I had done my comeback fight after losing the title to Carlos, knocked out Shoney Carter. So in my contract, it said that I had an automatic rematch clause, right? And they go, no, not happening. You're moving up to 185. And I go, I'm not big enough for 185, right? But I realized at that point, business-wise, how easily I could be discarded, right? And it kind of ruined me, to be honest with you, mentally. I was like, I don't even want to do this. But neither here nor there, Lindland, after we fought, he came to my gym to train for one of his fights. And Steve Rusk is there that day. And Rusk was a great Greco guy. And now it's the Olympic silver medalist Greco guy going against a guy that's an unknown. And Rusk ragdolls him. We're doing winner stays on the mat. And Lindland gets taken down. and Lindland won't leave the mat. You can't believe he's getting taken down by a no-name, right? So Rusk does it to him again, does it to him again, does it to him again. And finally the whole team goes, Lindland, get off the mat, dude. Get the fuck off the mat. Lindland comes over and sits next to me and goes, who the fuck is that guy? I go, that's Steve Rusk. He's Steve. He destroys everybody.
There's a lot of those guys in gyms out there that don't want to fight, but they're super high level. Donaher was telling me about some guys that he has in his gym that wreck some of his best top guys that go in competitions.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, Rusk was a guy who he grabbed. It was Dave Strasser who fought in the UFC for a while. Dave was a tough guy.
Dave was very tough.
But Rusk grabbed he was in Dave's guard, and he grabbed his foot and his shin bone and went like this and was going to just break his foot off. Right? That's how strong this guy was. And Strasser taps out and gets up and looking at him like, there's no way I'm ever grappling with you again. He goes, stay away from me. I don't want any part of you ever again.
Yeah, dude. It's I love a good origin story, man. Were you born in the Quad Cities? Where'd you come from?
Yeah, I grew up in Orion. I went to school in Orion, so not too far away, about 20 minutes to the south, I guess, of Quad Cities. And, my family, my dad's always lived in Geneseo, so between those two areas, that's where I come from, and been in the Quad Cities pretty much my whole life.
Nice. Born and raised, man. Nothing wrong with the Quad. Well, again, it's crazy because it's like the story of Steve Rusk has just been so stout, of this cat who just comes in dripping with Bambi's blood and just ragdiles these world-class athletes and then heads back out into the bush. Give me your history of your athletics, man. Before you linked up with MFS, you did some wrestling at Augustana. Give a little bit of history on your history in athletics and wrestling and combat sports.
So I wrestled for Orion. I was a state champ for Orion. I went to University of Illinois, but I didn't take geometry in high school, so that made me ineligible. So then I switched to Augustana College. And at Augustana, my freshman year, I got third in the nation, and I got second my sophomore year. Then transferred back to Illinois and finished out my career there. And I had the goal to wrestle in the Olympics and ran into injuries there. Like when I got to Illinois, I had a surgical disc fusion on my neck, so I never quite was able to. I still finished my career, but just wasn't the same person I was before the surgery. Just couldn't get in shape and keep at that intensity level enough to wrestle every match in a row. And like one match I might be fine, the next match it wasn't as good. So just kind of derailed me, and just realized it's the end of my career.
Well, that kind of answers the question I was going to ask. You were in this cauldron of fire with the militant fighting system. These guys, iron sharpening iron every single day. And it kind of answers why, being such a, stout athlete and being, as badass as you were, all those guys went on, not all of them, but a lot of them went on to that championship stuff. But you're saying injuries is kind of what sidelined your push towards that next level?
Yeah, like Vision Quest, that old high school.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Movie, was the movie back in the day. And my Vision Quest was to make the Olympics. I really, really wanted to make the Olympics. That was my dream. And I really lived that dream, all the way through. I didn't get distracted much, never drank, never did anything, just trained, worked hard, wanted to make the Olympics. And then by the time that I ran into Pat, I had just got out of college. And like I said, that the injuries were taking their toll. I couldn't train the way I wanted to. So then I'd get tired in matches, like it just prevented me from being who I was,
Yeah.
So at that point I was like, I don't have any desire to compete anymore. I just want to, but I love to train. I love to do this stuff,
Okay.
I would play rugby for fun on the side. I would do this, but I just didn't want to compete. And then there was a couple times I decided like, well, they're making good money. Maybe I should compete for my family. And you got to remember at this time was when things were getting outlawed. So like I would sign up for something and Monty would be like, okay, there's a show in Atlanta. And I would sign up for it, train for a couple weeks or, a couple months probably. And then it would come back that the show got canceled or, you know what I mean? And different things. And I didn't have a good job. I was a college graduate, so I was working a full-time job always and doing this at the same time. And it just was too much to put in all that, and then they get canceled, and I didn't enjoy it. So that was the main part of it and so it wasn't worth it to me to do that.
Right. No, it makes sense, man. So in one of those clips, Pat talked about, he brought in Mark Coleman I remember that was in the Smashing Machine documentary, the fight that he trained Mark Coleman for that Grand Prix, that Pride Grand Prix. Talk to me a little bit about those cats who would come in, your Mark Colemans and any other fighters who would come in with maybe a certain kind of expectation and then had that expectation met with the stark reality of what the MFS was really about.
Yeah, I think we had a lot of guys come in here, and I think what they were really looking for was like thinking that they were going to come in here and we'd bow down to them like, oh, this guy's the champ and this guy's great. And it just wasn't that way. We treat them like everybody else, get in the pile and start working out. And that's, we had guys come in. Mark Coleman came in, he trained and he went through the gauntlet with us. Dan Severn, same thing, just was treated like another guy. I don't think anybody, took him special or anything like that. I remember Tim Sylvia fought, and I believe he just won the heavyweight title. I want to say it was the Munson fight, and we flew in on a Monday, and on Monday, like we got in from the airport and we went right to the gym because Brock Lesnar was in there. And when he was in there training, we were going to come train with him, but that night we just got in, so we were just watching him. And they started training, and I remember Ben Rothwell was in there, and Ben Rothwell was giving leg kicks, and he didn't like that. And so he was, going and he would take them down or whatever, but then he didn't want no more leg kicks. And then Matt Hughes jumped on him, and Matt Hughes got his back, and Brock jumped up and like landed on his back to, try to get Matt Hughes off of him. And Matt just held on, and tapped him out. And again, like he was supposed to train there for like 2 weeks, I believe, and he left the next day because he didn't like the way that he was being treated there. And I think he thought that he's going to come there and everyone's going to be like, oh, this is Brock Lesnar, nobody's going to do nothing to him. And it wasn't that way at that gym. Everybody wanted to test their abilities and see what they could do. We had, Brad Imes, all those guys, that at that heavyweight level that could push people, and a wrestler might be good at one thing, but Ben Rothwell's showing right now in the bare knuckles.
Yes,
he was a great stand-up fighter too. So it wasn't just Tim Sylvia there; that we had all kinds of people there.
And this is Brock Lesnar. Obviously, he's in his UFC career at this point.
Yeah, he was. It's hard to believe or hard to remember, but I believe it was. Just when he was just starting, and that's why he was there, is because he was just getting ready.
We talk about Sylvia Monson. I think that's obviously pre-Brock, so I didn't know if
it must have. It had to have been right about there. I believe it would have been right when he started.
Okay, yeah, still.
I don't really know. You'd have to check who it was. I just know. I remember that Tim fought in the UFC. We flew home, got off the plane, went right over to the gym, just to see, who he was, or, what he was doing and how he did in the gym with the guys and stuff like that. And all that happened. So there was a lot of people there that probably remember exactly what happened, but it was pretty amazing.
Yeah. Well, and you talk about hooking up with Pat. When was how did that happen, man? Linking up with Pat and MFS and rolling with those guys.
Well, this is a funny story. It's a great story. It's a two-part. One, is the boring story. I ran into him after a fight, and he's like, hey, hook up with me sometime. I'd love to train with you wrestling, So there was that. Then a buddy of mine, Dan Knobb, showed up at my house one morning. It was a Saturday morning. He's like, hey, I'm going to go over and train with Pat Miletich over at Nick Tarpin's, and let's go get a workout in. And I'm like, okay, sure. So I hop up, get in the car, and we go over and train with Pat. And I mean, Pat had me go with a couple guys first and did that. And then Pat and I went, and I mean, we went at it for an hour. When I say it was like a UFC fight for an hour, like we just back and forth. And we both got done, kind of looked at each other and was like, yeah, that's a hell of a workout, And so come like a week later or something, I run into Pat and, we're going to train again. He's like, well, that Dan Knobb said the night before that he was going to bring you over here to beat me up. And so he thought the whole time I was coming there to beat him up. And I thought I was just going over there to get a workout in with Pat. So it's funny how you end up in those situations where, people are talking junk on your behalf and then you got to stand up for it.
That's hilarious. Well, I have to. I mean, again, I kind of alluded to it earlier, man. But like, the MFS, the militant fighting system, I always kind of called it like the Yankees of of MMA and combat sports. I mean, they just breeding just gold after gold and champion after champion. And it's so, I mean, not to make it about me, but before I even knew Pat or worked with Pat, I used to work out at this place called DJ's Body Shop on Locust and Davenport, RIP DJ. But when I would walk in, Pat would be on the fucking bike. I would leave like an hour and a half later, Pat would be on the fucking bike. And one of the things that you guys in MFS was always known for was for the endurance of many things. The kind of the multifaceted, Pat being the early MMA guy, almost Jeet Kune Do style, bringing multiple martial arts into one discipline, if you will. Anyway, that room, that cauldron of fire again, if you will, that iron sharpening iron, fucking Jens Pulver, Tim Sylvia, you, Pat, Robbie, Matt, what was that room like?
Oh, it was
Training.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was so fun to go to every day, and like say you went on Monday and Monday was takedowns, so then one person might dominate the takedown night. Well, then the very next night you show up and it's sparring just like boxing, and a different person's, so the person that's giving the butt whippings the first night isn't the same person that's, giving it the second night. So that's what made it so fun, is like you never had a true all around, person that was dominating every single night in every situation. So it was just awesome to go in there and just give it your all. And then you were always learning something, you're getting pushed in a different direction, learning. So it wasn't boring, but like I said, at that time I had wrestled for so long, it was pretty mundane. You weren't learning new stuff, but then all of a sudden you're trying to learn how to box and kickbox and do jiu-jitsu. And we're all like figuring out, the jiu-jitsu was so new at this point.
Right.
Like it was, a lot of it was theory, right? So a lot of the stuff, nobody knew if it really worked or not, or, and so you're like this, and you're like, this isn't going to work on a wrestler. He's used to that. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
So we were going through and throwing some stuff out and using it. And of course, everything works in a certain situation, but not something that we wanted to, practice on a daily basis for this higher level.
Well, as you bring that up, I don't know how many street fights you've been in. It's not really relevant, but of the multiple disciplines you have learned, what do you feel is the most utilitarian in a no rules street fight? Obviously, like you said, there's different disciplines that are useful in different situations, but on your average street fight, what would you say is the most effective discipline?
So again, this would probably be, everybody else will probably disagree, but I still love wrestling. I love being able to control people and, take them to the ground and be able to control people so easily. Now people are going to say, oh, in a street fight, you don't want to go to ground. Not proud to mention it, but I've been in my share and I've taken people to the ground, and you know what I mean? It's like,
right.
I'm not sitting on top of them, just staying there, you just get back up, and take
right.
it. And so I definitely think wrestling's still your best scenario, because you can control people. Nobody can punch you from the side, or behind them. So I love to have the wrestling background, but that we learned right away. You got to learn all of them. That's the thing, is if you don't, whatever one you don't know is going to be the one that kills you, So that's what made Militich so good, was we were one of the first ones that we respected all of them instead of just kept saying that ours is the better,
Well, and you were coming in, from what I hear, kind of Big Brother style. It wasn't necessarily the rules you were adhering to. Pat was talking about you guys going in and like fish hooking cats. So you were really taking it to the next level. You were pushing these guys past their limit of what they would normally probably see in a sanctioned fight.
He's just talking about me picking on him. I used to pick on the guys all the time. My brothers did that stuff to me. So I would do it to these guys. I'd hold them down and pick on them some, especially when they got tired and wanted to quit. I wouldn't let them quit and make them keep going and going. And, that's what makes people tougher and makes, realize, oh, I can keep going and just quitting, And, I remember people being like, I'm done, I'm walking out, and telling them, hey, we can finish here, we can finish in the parking lot, but we're not done till I say it's done, And several times I took people down outside and just said, we're still going, the bell wasn't ring out, and that was the mindset we had, and it was just fun, and but I'd pick them up at the end and love them and treat them like a brother, and they were there the next day, you know what I mean? And the people that weren't, you never seen them again. You know, there was plenty of those guys too. You know,
Like,
you hear about the ones that stayed, but there was a lot of them that came one day and never
yes,
came
sir.
back again.
Yeah, to separate the wheat from the chaff, and that's so dope, man. Because obviously, MFS is lore, and your name, it may not be as big as the Path to Robbies, but you were a huge variable component of that iron sharpening iron, man. So, damn, big ups to you, man. I've just always wondered, man. Just being a fan of the sport and training the little bit that I have, I always hear shit about just knowing Pat and just knowing the champions he pumped out, that room, man. I could just only imagine on a given nightly basis how fucking intense that had to have been.
Oh, it was amazing. And Pat is just, he's incredible. Like, he just always had that right mindset. There was never a day where he was like, man, I don't feel like training today. He was always going in there and being like, hey, let's get at it today. And he'd always be leading by example, running the hill. Who wants to run the hill with me? He'd go run the hill, and then people would show up and run the hill. It wasn't like he said, everybody's got to come run the hill. It was just people wanted to be like Pat. And that was enough to lead that gym to what it needed to be. He was a great leader by example.
Get it how you live it, baby. And speaking of the champ, man, he's got I hit him up and let him know I was going to be chopping it up with you today. So he hit me up with a couple questions, man. So these questions here are coming from the Croatian sensation. Big ups, love you, champ. Question number 1 from the champ. Ask how he used to terrorize Tim Sylvia when Tim was the UFC champ.
Well, like I said, to be honest, anyone that knows me probably knows I wouldn't even come on this podcast. I'm not one that likes the spotlight. I don't like to be,
Right.
it's just not my personality. But I told my wife, I was like, I really want to go on there just because everyone's always talking on my behalf. And I want to let people know that I didn't beat anybody. Like, Tim is my workout partner. The Matt Lindland thing, I worked out with the guy. I'm trying to help people get better. It was never about me beating anybody or me doing something. Like, I worked with these guys. I respect these guys to the fullest, and I never want to take any credit from these guys. They all did stuff that I did not do. I'm proud and happy that I was there to be part of their journey and to be in their corner when the time came.
Nice. I mean, and you absolutely were. And I appreciate that modesty and humility, Steven. That's really dope, man. But obviously, you were a huge part of these guys' success and growth and development. But that's what's up, man. Second question. I thought this was kind of funny. When I heard that, anyway, talk about the Springfield, Illinois Police Academy story when you beat up all the instructors as you were going through the academy. That sounds about right. Right.
There's a couple different things there. So I went to the academy at PTI, which was in Champaign, not Springfield.
Okay.
But,
Okay.
He's probably talking about like there was a barroom scene, and so what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to go in and try to hold off the barroom fight, and then in every 30 seconds or a minute or something, they send in more cops to back you up. So you're supposed to be able to not get taken over by, and last for the time for more cops to get there. And then when you get enough cops, arrest everybody. And so I started, and another guy came in, and that was all it took. By then, everybody was handcuffed and taken in, and they were all mad at me because, they're like, you used too much force. And I'm like, you shouldn't resisted, and but you just came right from the Militich camp to a police academy where these guys are doing this stuff. So you were just on a different level at that time,
And now that you bring that up, my first interview on this show, I've done almost 300 or whatever, it's hundreds. My first one was with Pat. He told me it was crazy because I was talking about utilizing jujitsu, body control, et cetera, in police training because he trains police and special forces, et cetera. He told me, dude, that whatever the word is, body control is only trained for whatever he said. It was in a very, very short period of time. Of the training that the police give their officers on controlling human beings, not necessarily grappling and holds but somewhat. But what are your thoughts on that, man? And has that changed? Has that been modified?
It's absolutely terrible. It's absolutely ridiculous the amount of training that is given to police officers and hand-to-hand stuff. And it's just it's a terrible situation because I've been part of trying to do it, and then people show up and they say they get hurt, and I'm sure most of the injuries didn't even happen, during the training, but it gives them oh, I hurt my knee, now I'm off work for
Oh,
2 months or
jeez.
whatever, or they do get hurt because they've never done anything like this. And so then they get hurt, and then you gotta, again, you got work comp claims and stuff. So then the departments are all like, well, we can't afford to have people off work. We can't do this type of training, but it's really what's needed. I just honestly believe like you don't have as many shootings or as many problems if everybody is comfortable using their hands and going hands on
Right.
and controlling people a little bit better than what they can,
Well, I mean, in becoming a police officer, at some point in time, you're going to have those kind of physical altercations with people. You would think you would want to have the adequate tools to address those kind of threats.
Right. And I think like the only way you can do it is, people, they got lives, they got kids,
Right.
and stuff at home. So they get off of work and now it's off their mind and they're going to kids' soccer games or doing whatever. Like it needs to be through the department. And there are some departments that do better than others. Some offer it as just like, you come in on Tuesday mornings and you can learn jujitsu, And I think that's a great step, and that those departments are doing a great job offering it and working on it. And other departments just aren't at that same level, I guess.
Well, I mean, it's good. Cats like you on the team helps bring a little bit more, hopefully, awareness to the need for that kind of training. But I found that very shocking that police officers receive such little training. A couple more questions, man. I don't want to keep you too much longer, but you got a hunting bug, man. When did that bug bite you? You've been out in the bush doing your thing for a long time. Have you been doing that all your life? Being an Iowa guy, I'm assuming so.
I think I've always liked the hunting. Like I said, I always wrestled, so I wasn't able to go because it was always during, wrestling season. And so I think it was just always one of those things like I always wanted to do and couldn't go, or, didn't have anyone to take me when I was young. But my grandpa was real big into it, my older brother. And so it was just something that, I think when you can't do something, it gives you that hunger for it, So
Right.
I was never able to, and that's how come when I graduated, I was like, okay, now I'm gonna go hunting, I'm gonna go fishing. So you know what I mean? I'm not gonna let this stuff dictate what I do anymore, and that's why I always made it important to just keep doing that and keep going hunting and keep fishing, and then I'll do that stuff after I'm done,
Yeah. Well, I follow you on the book, obviously, and it's cool. I mean, I think I told you I met you one time, and it was through. I know your wife. I've known your wife since grade school, since we were kids. We've all lived in the same neighborhood. But I see you on Facebook, and you're teaching your children about this stuff too. I see, like you posted the other day. It must be a multi-generational thing. I'm assuming that was your pops. You had your pops out there, and you and your daughter Hannah. So it's a multi-generation thing you got going on.
Yeah, that it wasn't my pops, but my dad passed, and
I apologize,
my
sir. I
mom
apologize.
too, but that was my uncle, so it would be still family. So it was my uncle. He's 75. He had never shot a turkey or been turkey hunting, so I took him out, and he was able to get his first turkey at age 75.
Nice.
So that was really cool, and I know he had a good time. And my uncle helped me with wrestling. He wrestled at Black Hawk College, so he's kind of the one that pushed me when I was younger to be a good wrestler and
Oh, wow.
always
Very
work.
cool.
And so it was good to have something to give back to him.
And was there, with Hannah, with the daughter, I see you doing that, was there an ew factor you had to overcome, or was she in it to win it from jump?
Oh yeah, no, she's always been in it to win it. It's funny because she's I don't know 5'6", 5'7", and my son's 6'6", 250 pounds, and he has more of an ooh factor than my daughter does. He's always like, I ain't touching that dead thing, you know what I mean? And my daughter would go kill a raccoon with me, she didn't care, but
That's awesome.
yeah, it's funny, but no, she's always been good with it, and she has a love for animals and understands the hunting
absolutely.
aspect as well,
That's cool. That's cool. I mean, it's good to see, obviously, daddy-daughter time's a wonderful thing, and it's just cool to see you sharing your passions with your kiddos. And speaking of your son, I definitely wanted to ask you, man, you've got a very stout kid coming into the he's been there. Actually, last year there was an injury. Talk about it, if you will. Cole Rusk, man, is going to be making his debut for Illinois as a wide receiver here this coming fall, man. Talk to us about that, man. You got to be proud.
Oh, I'm extremely proud. He's worked his tail end off for many years, and he grew up in the gym too. So I still give credit to the gym for him. Like, he just grew up with all these world champs. So I don't think anything was ever out of his mind. Like, he never felt out out of his league. He's
Right.
always believed in himself and believed that he could be the best. And I think hopefully, without injuries, he'll have the chance to prove this year that he could be the best in the college football. And he is a tight end, by the way, but
Tight end. I'm sorry. Okay.
yeah, no, but he has a lot of drive. Like he reminds me of the guys and that were going through MFS at that time. He doesn't get sidetracked very much, and he just works and just really wants to prove himself as one of the best.
And this will be his sophomore year.
He's got 2 years left, but he actually graduates next Saturday, so
Okay.
he'll be
Oh, cool.
graduating, and he'll go for his master's after that, and he's got 2 years eligibility left.
That's what's
And
up.
so yeah, we're real excited to see what he can do.
So, I mean, I don't necessarily, it was a huge deal, and I don't necessarily want you to necessarily speak for him necessarily, but as his father kind of expressed his sentiments, he had transferred from another school. Obviously, it was a big deal getting transferred to Illinois. There was an injury that postponed his debut last year. Like I said, without, how, for lack of a better term, kind of demoralizing. What did that mean to him? How significant was that setback, if you will, and how has he kind of rebuilt from that?
Yeah, I mean, he was at a pinnacle. He was All-American at Murray State when that's where he was at as a tight end. And he come into Illinois and he had a great spring season, showed what he can do and showed that it would carry over. Everything was going good. He got named for the Mackey Award list, which is a top tight end in the country. And literally about the same day he got nominated for the Mackey list, he just had a no contact ACL tear, like just ran a route and his knee just went. And
Oh, wow.
that's some dark times. Anybody that's been through an injury and you have to go into the training room every day by yourself and rehab, and people are getting the spotlight, and you feel like that was supposed to be your spotlight. And it makes it tough. And the team had a lot of success, and he wanted to be part of it. His roommate is the quarterback of the Illini, and so that was their deal to go to together and win these games, and he wasn't able to be part of it, and so it makes it rough. And I'm not happy, but I can, like I said, I went through the injuries myself, so I do understand. I understand how tough it is to do it, and I just love his drive and perseverance that
Yeah.
I didn't miss many days coming back at it, and you would never known that he's hurt, so he just kept training. It's like, timing's everything, and he'll be back next year bigger and stronger.
And that's why I kind of be very selective with my language, setbacks, and because some people, I mean, it may be delayed stuff, but it probably added fuel to the fire. So when he comes back, he's just that much more on top of his game.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I definitely, I don't want to speak for him, but I can tell you that, I mean, his drive's there. He's ready to go, and he's ready to do some things. And
Nice.
I'm just anxious to see it, and hopefully, we can stay away from the injuries, and I can just enjoy watching him, let him do his thing.
Looking forward to it. Steve, I really appreciate you taking the time, man. And I wanted to ask you something. It's kind of corny, but I don't know, man. Life is just weird, man. And lately it's been humbling for me. I've lost some people and just learned to really value just every day, man, and embracing all of my blessings. And again, going back to, there's no real mistakes or failures, just kind of opportunities to learn to be a better person, man. I know that sounds corny, but if you, not necessarily a top 3, but what are some of your just top life lessons that you've learned, brother?
Man, good things happen to good people. The more I do for people, the more that it comes back to me. And I just believe that, I honestly believe the nicer you are to people, that stuff just, I don't know, call it karma, call it what you will, but that stuff comes back. And I can't tell you the times that I've not had a dime to my name, and I give somebody something, and next thing you know, you're getting gains in some other way. And it might not be in money, but it, in some way or what have you. But I just truly live by, is good, good things happen to good people. Do good to others, and it never comes back to hurt you.
And it's free. It doesn't cost you shit.
Yeah.
Just be good to people, man.
Yeah, and it feels so good. Like, sometimes they don't even respond to it or whatever, but
That's all right.
I love it. Makes me feel better, I feel better about myself, so.
That's what's up, man. Steve, Russ, man, I really, really appreciate you, man. I was You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. When I'm talking to Justin, you expressed the sentiment that you don't really do the public stuff, and I'm like, I gotta hit him up. The worst he could say is go fuck yourself and no. And I'm glad you hit me back and responded, and we were able to put this together, man. Again, I really, really appreciate you taking the time. And as a martial arts fan, I thank you for being one of those logs in the fire that fueled that Milicic fighting system and the incredible success that they had, man.
Thanks a lot. I really appreciate having me on here and listen to my terrible stories.
No, they're awesome, man. We all wanted to hear it, dude. Pat set the bar so high on JRE. Is like, who is this cat, man? And like everybody has a story, so I really wanted to dig down and just chop it up with you and catch your story. Again, shout outs, big ups to your wife, man. Congratulations, you guys have been married a long time. Beautiful family. I'm just, I'm glad I had the chance to take the time, and thank you for taking the time to come chop it up with us, brother.
Thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate it.
All right, Steven Rusk, ladies and gentlemen. Peace and so much love. You guys know what it is. There will always be more.